Hey guys, in today's video, I want to look at the strangest MVP candidates from each year of the 2010s. Before we start though, I just have to say thank you all so much for 1,000 subs. It means so much. So to celebrate, I decided that I would do something special, like a basketball in real life or Q&A, something like that. Anyways, if you want me to do something, write it in the comments below and I might do it. Now, for this video, if you enjoy it, then please leave a like. If this video gets 75 likes, I will do this for other decades. Also, if you are new, then please subscribe. I'm trying to hit 1,100 subscribers by the end of the year, and it just really helped me out. Also, one thing I'd like to add before we begin is the fact that I'm definitely going to over-exaggerate on the number of votes at times in this video, especially when they got the same or less than a much better player. Now, let's get into the video. To start off this video, I'd like to look at the 2019 NBA season. So this season actually had pretty decent voting, and it was pretty hard to find someone who I would consider outrageous. However, I think the fact that someone actually voted for LeBron James last year, even when he didn't even make the playoffs, is pretty dumb. Then I guess you could also say the fact that Rudy Gobert got a vote is pretty strange, given that he wasn't even the best player on his team. But again, they both only got one vote, so I can't really complain. Okay, this year isn't that interesting, so I guess we should just move on. Okay, so unlike the 2019 season, the 2018 season does have a very bruh voting moment, considering Jimmy Butler did get 5 votes, despite only being the 8th seed in the West. Then to make this even worse, Jimmy had the same amount of votes as Steph Curry, who I know wasn't even the best player on his team, but come on. You're comparing arguably the best player on the 2nd seed in the West to Jimmy Butler, who barely made the playoffs. It's blasphemous. Then another thing that makes this selection look even worse is that he got more votes than Joel Embiid, a guy who had better stats in less minutes and more games, and was actually on a contending team. Overall, this just wasn't a very smart selection. Now let's move on. Alright, so for the 2017 NBA season, I think the strangest MVP candidate was Anthony Davis. So I know he did only get 2 votes, so it wasn't that insane, but he didn't even make the playoffs, so he should have gotten no votes. Then on top of that, you realize that he got the same amount of votes as Kevin Durant, which is insane. KD was the best player on a 67-win team, while Anthony Davis didn't even make the playoffs. Like, what? Luckily, there are no other dumb candidates like this, so I can't complain too much. I'm still pissed off about the AD thing though. Now let's continue. Okay, so for the 2016 NBA season, we have a guy who wasn't even the best player on his own team and still somehow got 50 votes in Draymond Green. So the reason I don't think Draymond should have been an MVP candidate is because, like I said, Draymond was only the 2nd or in my opinion 3rd best player on the Warriors, so if you're going to vote for someone from that franchise, you should just vote for Steph, or I'd even say Clay. It just doesn't make sense. Then the other dumb MVP candidate from 2016, who is honestly in the exact same situation as Draymond, is Russell Westbrook. So I'm not really mad at the voters for this selection, since Russell was very good this year and on a contending team, but the fact that he got 3 times more votes than his much better teammate KD is not smart at all. Seriously, there is no good reason why someone should vote for Russell Westbrook over KD in 2016. It's just irrational. Overall, just 2 MVP candidates who don't make much sense. Alright, now, the strangest MVP candidate from 2015 has to be again Russell Westbrook, who got 352 votes despite not even making the playoffs. So this one is pretty simple. If someone's team isn't in the playoffs, then they definitely shouldn't be MVP. That's it. End of discussion. However, for some reason, the MVP voters in 2015 decided that it'd be a great idea to vote for Russell Westbrook, which just doesn't make sense to me. Luckily, everyone else from this year made sense, so I can't get too mad at the voters, but the Westbrook thing was stupid to say the least. Also, before we move on, I just want to say that a 38-year-old Tim Duncan actually managed to get a vote this year, which I think is pretty funny considering his age. Now let's move on. Okay, so for 2014, we have the worst MVP candidate of the video in Joakim Noah. Dude, this just doesn't make any sense. First off, the Bulls only had 48 wins, which is alright, but literally every Western Conference playoff team had more than that. So then Joakim Noah was still not even that good, him averaging only 12.6 points and 11 rebounds. And the worst part is there were other candidates on this level of dumb. A few notable ones being Goran Dragic, who didn't make the playoffs, Kevin Love, who didn't make the playoffs, Mike Conley, who wasn't even an all-star, Al Jefferson, who no one even knows, and there are a few more still. Overall, just a terrible year for MVP voting. So surprisingly, while going over all the voting from 2013, there were never any candidates that I thought were strange, and it was pretty good for the most part. Yeah, there were some strange candidates, but they got very little votes, so I don't mind. Alright, I guess we should just move on then. Okay, so for the 2012 NBA season, the dumbest MVP candidate definitely goes to Kevin Love, who got a solid 58 votes despite not even making the playoffs. So while looking through the MVP voting from each year, I have noticed Kevin Love coming up a lot when he is literally never on a good team. Now, I know he was putting up great numbers and the Timberwolves' failure was definitely not his fault, but a guy whose team doesn't even make the playoffs should never, ever be 6th in MVP voting. Like, come on, it's just common sense. Then to make that even worse, Kevin Love got more votes than Derrick Rose, who was the best player on the first seed in the East. What? Yeah, I just don't get it. Then the other guy I have to mention from this year was Steve Nash, whose team also didn't make the playoffs, and he only averaged 12 points. Yeah, I don't even have to explain this one. Let's just move on. And finally, for the 2011 NBA season, the strangest MVP candidate is probably Blake Griffin, who didn't even make the playoffs. So this spot was pretty obvious considering every other candidate did have a good reason for being on the list, and no one was really that crazy. However, Blake is still killing me, especially when he got more votes than Tony Parker, who was the best player on the second best team in the league. Like, bruh. Overall, this year's MVP voting wasn't that interesting and outrageous, so I guess we'll just end it here. Alright guys, that just about wraps it up. If you enjoyed the video, then please leave a like, and if you are new, then please subscribe. And that's it. Cue the outro.